Hi there, my name's Minx. Now, some of you may know me by a different name, but I have this day job. And while it's generally okay for men to talk openly about sex and still get respect in the workplace, not so true for women. So tonight, I'm Minx. I discovered polyamory in 2003 when I fell in love with a poly guy. He had a fiance, and I didn't know shit about polyamory, except that I had always thought it would be a really great idea. So I decided to try it. Never thought it would work out, but here I am, 14 years later, been doing the Poly Weekly podcast, blog, and activism for the last 12 years with over 500 episodes. Now, a quick show of hands for the brave. How many of you are either poly or would like to be? Okay. So a study last year showed that 31% of women and 48% of men said their ideal relationship would involve some type of polyamory. But only 24% of women and 34% of men were in such a relationship. What's holding everyone up? Can't be awareness, because we've been getting some great press about polyamory lately. CNN, NPR reporting on us. There was an article last week in the New York Times Magazine about polyamory. Oh, I know what it is. When you come out as poly, you're automatically the poly expert to everyone you know, and you get these same questions. Don't you get jealous? Isn't that complicated? Don't you worry about STIs? And oh, so you're afraid of commitment? And the answers, at least for me, are yes, I get jealous and I get over it. No, no. And in the sex-positive community, we actually talk and educate a lot more about STIs, so transmission rates are actually much lower than in the mainstream community. What you might not know about polyamory is that most of the pioneers of it were women. Dossie Easton, Janet Hardy, co-authors of The Ethical Slut, Deborah Taj Anapol, author of Love Without Limits, Tristan Taormino, author of Opening Up, Elizabeth Sheff, our favorite poly researcher, and of course, me. Now, while many people choose to do solo poly, for those who come to polyamory from heterosexual coupled relationships, 9 times out of 10, it's the woman's idea to open up. Now, if you have poly friends, they may try to tell you that polyamory is more enlightened. It isn't, and you can tell them that Minx said so. Polyamory isn't any more enlightened than the people in it. A lot of poly people, especially if you go on the forums, will also try to tell you the right and wrong ways to do polyamory. The only right way to do poly is the way that works for the people in that particular relationship. Triad, quad V, solo poly, whatever works for you. Because once you opt out of monogamy, you're building your relationship structure from scratch. So you can keep the parts of monogamy you like, but redefine everything else according to what suits the people in the relationship. Now, it is true that the 3 rules of poly are communication, communication, and communication. You cannot sweep anything under the rug if you do not enjoy talking about absolutely everything with absolutely everyone, absolutely all the time. Probably not a good choice for you. People also think that polyamory involves a lot of rules about who you can and can't love or sleep with. How many of you have ever tried to make a rule to control the behavior of a full-grown adult? How did that work out for you? What we tend to find is what works better is setting personal boundaries. For example, if I don't like to hear my partner having sex with somebody else, it's my job to identify that boundary, communicate it, and figure out what to do about it. Maybe I go out for a pedicure or invest in a good set of earplugs. New relationship energy is that wonderful wash of brain chemicals you get that make you feel like all the songs on the radio are just about you and your relationship. And with poly, you get to experience that more than once, plus you can even bring some of that NRE back and share it with your existing partner. Many people assume that polyamorists are A, slutty, B, indiscriminate, and C, out to convert you and your partner. Now, that may be true for some, but generally, most of us choose poly because it's the truest expression of who we are. We just want to live our lives, and we want to have the option of doing it in a way that is not monogamy. So, in the end, we really all just want poly to be boring. We want polyamory to be a valid relationship option, and we want coming out as poly to be just as boring and mundane as coming out as heterosexual or announcing you're going to be an accountant. If you are poly-curious, we have 12 years of archives at polyweekly.com, along with FAQs, keyword search is your friend. I am Polyweekly and Cunning Minx on every social media platform, and you can find our podcast by searching your favorite podcatcher for the keyword Polyweekly. Thank you.